I had just started divinity school, and I began working at this church in Lynn, Massachusetts, and I encountered this incredible woman. Her name was June Rohr. Now, June, in some fashion, would maybe even consider herself a little bit of a curmudgeon-y older woman, having reached her 80s and now looking at ways that she could live her faith. Now, she may have particular understandings of what that would mean, but I was amazed by June. For you see, the church that I was a part of was getting involved in community organizing. And rather than just putting a kibosh on it or saying, oh no, we don't do that here, June said, I'm going to go to one of those meetings. I'm going to learn what this is all about. And so June went to meeting after meeting and started learning about what the community was doing to keep the public libraries open. What they were doing to make sure that the positions of police officers were not being cut in a city that was facing budget deficits. June began to talk about what it meant for us in that community to become more multicultural, what it meant to reach out in new ways. There was another program that had been started at the church that was about tutoring the young students at the elementary school right next door. And every Wednesday night, June was there tutoring her students. She loved building that connection. Now, if this would have been several years ago, she probably would have had her ruler and would have been there giving them warnings at different times, but she worked very closely with them, and she loved the children. And in return, they loved her. She loved baking bread for the church on Sunday mornings, connecting with others, with welcoming them. Now, it was one night that I was driving her home from church back to her house that we started talking about her husband who had passed away, talking about the changing church community. And I asked June about her faith. Now, like many, June was from Fargo, North Dakota. As we started talking about faith, she kind of just said, oh, my faith isn't that great. I'm working on it. I'm just like everyone else. It was fascinating, though. Here was this woman who was doing so much. And yet, when I lifted it up as a model for others, she was quick to push up back. Oh, I'm not that faithful. There are others. And then she would lift up other role models of faith. I'm curious for you, how many people do you look to in your life that would be role models of faith? By the things that they do, by the way that they live their lives, by the actions put into practice. And yet, how many of us, if we were to say, oh, you are an inspiration for me, your faith is incredible. My guess is many of them would do that, say, oh, no, you should look at so-and-so. Have you heard about this or that? There is always a pointing to another. And as we come to the lesson for today, we have this looking to Jesus, directing. The disciples saying, increase our faith. Now, as I mentioned in adult education, I do love that line because in our culture, it is so easy for us to focus on the me. And even in our churches today, how often do we hear, what is that church going to do for me? Do they have the right program for me or for my child? What happens when we begin talking about the our, the us? And the disciples come with that question, that hope, that aspiration of increase our community. increase our faith. Now, I like to believe that Jesus is making a transition here as he is talking with the disciples. You see, in Luke, we have the stories of many incredible miracles, things that are happening. We have many parables, and in fact, over the last several weeks, we have been talking about these parables. Jesus has been one who is acting, who is doing incredible things. He is one who is teaching, sharing words with the disciples. And now, as they are saying, increase our faith, there is this transition to say, it's not just about me. It is now also about you. What are you doing that demonstrates, that illustrates that faith? How are you living that engages what I have been doing and what I have been teaching? How is that moving you forward in your connection with the Holy One of Israel? The God who has called us into being and who journeys with us. How is your faith active in your life? This points us back to the second reading for today, this letter to Timothy. Imagine with me, and maybe some of you have already started thinking about this as I entered into this sermon, but who are the mothers, the grandmothers, the fathers, the grandfathers of faith, who have shaped and informed you? Those who have touched your lives deeply, have called you to think in new and profound ways about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Those who have allowed you to go deeper into what this looks like. In this letter to Timothy, we have these two incredible women who are lifted up, Lois and Eunice. I want to point out how significant that is in the culture of that day, to have two women lifted up as the forebearers of faith, the ones who pass on the care, the tradition, the life, the following. This is radical work.